Hello everyone, welcome back. In today's video, we'll be working on skill integration challenge. In this activity, there are three objectives. First is to finish the network documentation. Second, to perform basic device configuration on the router and the switch. And last is verify connectivity and troubleshoot any issues. In this scenario, your network manager is impressed with your performance in your job as a LAN technician. He would like you to now demonstrate your ability to configure a router connecting two LANs. Your task includes configuring basic settings on a router and a switch using the Cisco IOS. You will then verify your configurations as well as configuration on existing devices by testing end-to-end connectivity. And there's a small note right here. It says after completing this activity, you can choose to click the reset activity, which is right here, to generate a new set of requirements. So you can redo this activity for your better lab practices. So variable aspects include device name, IP addressing schemes, and topology, and the topology. So these are the requirements for this activity. And right now, if you see, we are at the completion rate of 0 out of 100. We'll be finishing all the requirements one by one. So let's go to packet tracer and see the topology. All right, so there are 1, 2, 3, 4 end devices, and there are 2 switch and 1 router. If you see your addressing table, it has all the interfaces and the IP addresses we have to assign on the devices. So let's get started with the first requirement of this activity. Provide the missing information in the addressing table. So the missing requirement, missing information is the default gateway. So we'll be filling out default gateway for all the devices. First, let's start with all the end devices. We'll start with the manager A, desktop, IP configuration, and manager A is in a 10.10.10 network, so we will be assigning this the default gateway of 10.10.10.1. And we'll be moving to the next device in this network, which is the reception A. Desktop, IP configuration. This is in the 10 network as well. And we will be assigning default gateway to this device as well. So close this out. Moving to the next network, which is this. And we'll be assigning default gateway to the end devices first. So manager B, desktop, IP configuration. This is on 11 network. So 10.10.11.1 will be this device default gateway. Same for reception B, because if you see right here, it is on the 11 network, but this is not. Let's see on our addressing table. Reception B 10.10.11.102. So let's fix this up. And put this as a default gateway. Perfect. So now we are, one second. We are done with the first requirement. We'll be moving to the next requirement now, which is naming the router floor 14 and second switch room 146. Let's start with the router first and do all the configuration. And we will move on to switch. One second, let me erase this up. So starting with the router, give a command on enable config t and host name of floor 14. So we are done with this. Moving to the next requirement is assigning Cisco as a exec password for all lines. So console line console 0, password as Cisco, login. So line VTY0 password, Cisco, and exit. Perfect. So we just finished this requirement for the router. Moving on to the next requirement, which is assigning class as a privileged exec password. So enable password as a class and enable secret as a class. Now exit. We just did the fourth requirement. Moving on to fifth, which is, one second, which is to encrypting all the plain text passwords. So there's a command for making all the password encrypted, which is service password encryption, which will encrypt all the plain text passwords. Perfect, we just did this. Configure an, so next one is configure an appropriate banner. So we'll be assigning a banner MOGD and we'll be giving a message that you are not welcome. Perfect. We just completed this as well. Moving on to the next step, which is configuring addressing for all devices according to the addressing table. So we'll be assigning, since this is a router, there are two interfaces. One is going to our 10.10.10.1 network, and one is going to our 10.10.11.1 network. So we'll be assigning these interfaces the IP addresses. So first, interface Giga Ethernet 0/0, which is our 10 network. We'll be assigning IP address as 10.10.10.1 and subnet mask of 255.255.255.0, and give a command of no shut. Perfect. We just assign an IP address to this interface, and we'll be moving on to our next interface, which is Giga Ethernet 0/1. So interface config T, interface Giga Ethernet 0/1. We're giving this an IP address of 10.10.11.1, same subnet mask, and no shut command. We just configured IP address on both interfaces of the router, which is our floor 14. So we just did configure the IP addresses on the router. Moving on to document interfaces with description, including room 146 VLAN interface. So we'll be giving this an description of an interface. So we are in a Giga Ethernet 0/1. If you see in our topology, 0/1 is going to our 11 network, so which is room 146. So I will giving this a description of uplink to room 146. Exit interface Giga Ethernet 0/0, and we'll be giving this a description of uplink to room 145. Because if you see right here in the topology, it is going to, it's getting an uplink to 145. So exit, save your configuration. So we just did the interface descriptions. Now we'll be doing saving our configuration to our NVRAM. How we do this is copy running config, which is this, to the startup config, which will be in NVRAM. And destination file name, just leave it as a default and press enter. Now we saved all the running config to startup config, which is in the NVRAM. Perfect. Moving on to the next. Verify connectivity between all devices. All devices should be able to ping, troubleshoot any documents or any issues, implement solution for the end-to-end connectivity. So we just did the configuration of router 14. Moving on to router 140, room 146, which is our switch 2. So going back to topology, click room 146, CLI tab, enable config T, and we'll be starting from our first requirement or the second requirement, which is giving this a host name of room 146. And we'll be giving, next requirement is assigning this to Cisco as a password, line cancel password. So line console 0, password Cisco. Login. exit, and line VTY0, password, Cisco, exit. Now we'll be assigning class as a privilege exit password. So enable password as a class and enable secret as a class. Now exit. Now we'll be giving this a appropriate banner. So config t banner motd and you are not welcome here. Exit. So we just gave the switch a host name, assign a password, assign the privilege exit password. Well, we have to encrypt all the password. We just gave the appropriate banner. So let's encrypt all the passwords. So config t service password encryption done. Moving on to assigning this an IP address. So interface VLAN 1, IP address will be 10.10.10.11.100, 255.255.255.0, and no shit. Exit. So let me fix this up real quick. All right, perfect. So we just assigned this a VLAN an IP address. Now we'll be giving this a description. So let me go back to the VLAN first. Interface VLAN 1. In the description of this will be a downlink to floor 14. So downlink to floor 14. I mean, you can give whatever you want, but this, I feel this will help me understand where the interface is going to. So yeah. So we just finished giving this a description as well, saving the configuration. Exit, save, copy, running config to startup config, perfect, and exit. We did this as well. Now, excuse me, we will be assigning a default gateway to our room 146, which is our switch 2. Enable class config t IP default gateway will be, since 146 on the 11 network, we will give this an IP address of 10.10.11.1 and exit. Alrighty, so We did all of this. Now, if you see right here, we are at the completion of 100 of 100. So in this video, we have completed skill integration challenge. If you guys want to try to ping from manager A to manager B or the manager B, you could able to ping that. So if you guys have any questions, any suggestions, please comment below and stay tuned. I will be seeing you guys in my next video. Bye.